Here is the second apple of the season, and I am super thrilled. Not a single blemish on this apple. Hello, welcome back to my backyard suburban orchard. My name is Lisa and I garden on central Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. I garden in a zone 7 to 8 in terms of hardiness, and today we're going to check out my backyard fruit trees. Standing right beside me, this is a Desert King fig tree. These trees are one of the best fig trees for the Vancouver Island climate, and let's see how it's doing. Here is another view of my Desert King fig tree. It's not in its best year for production. It had quite a bit more fig production last season, but we gave it a massacre in the fall. I will link that video in the description or the cards. So it's kind of understandable that it's not producing super well, but it is producing. Let me show you. Here are a few of the ripe figs. I have picked a total of 8 figs so far. Not a whole lot, but given what we put the tree through in the fall, I am happy it has any figs. There's actually a lot of the second crop forming. Unfortunately, on Vancouver Island, most of the time this second crop of figs doesn't actually ripen. But we do still have more of the first crop here and there. Again, it's not going to be a super abundant year for the fig tree, but this is more of a rebound year from its extreme pruning in the fall. Just for fun, we should do a little fig harvest and taste test. I have people in my life who are absolutely fig crazy. Normally I give away quite a few figs every season, but I don't have as many this season, so I don't have as many to give away. But if I know someone is crazy about figs in my real world, I try to give them at least 1 fig each season. So let's do a little harvest and taste test. Right here, we've got a fig that is definitely ripe. So we're going to pick this fig and give it a taste test. Here is the Desert King fig that we just picked, and let's give it a little taste test. It's very juicy, which I absolutely love. I love fruits that have a lot of juices. This is what the inside looks like. I don't know if the camera is going to focus very well. Some seasons it's much more pinky inside. There is a pink tone to the inside. It's more toned down than most seasons. I am surprised that it's this juicy because we've had quite the drought this spring and summer. Hardly any rainfall compared to our usual averages. So I'm very happy that these guys are very juicy because I wasn't expecting them this season to be doing super well because it's been so dry outside, and also because we gave the tree such a harsh pruning. I thought all that combined it wouldn't be a good year, but taste wise no effect from that, so that is awesome. They are delicious. If you live on Vancouver Island, I highly recommend growing Desert King fig trees. They're so good. If you've never tried a fresh fig before, I highly recommend it. Until I grew my own figs right here, I don't think I had ever tried a fresh fig. In fact, I was convinced that I really disliked figs because growing up I only had dried figs, and there is a world of difference between a dried fig and a fresh fig, to the point where you would think it's almost a different fruit. So highly recommend give a fresh fig a try at least once in your life. supervisor is here, and our next stop is the peach tree. Right beside me here, right here, this is my coconut ice peach tree. Let's take a look at it. Here it is in all its glory. This peach tree, let's zoom in a little. This peach tree is the star of my backyard orchard this season. It has never had so many peaches in its life. The second season of having this peach tree in my garden, it produced 17 of the most delicious peaches. They tasted like a tropical drink. They did hardly taste like a peach, just with the essence of peach. It was absolutely delicious. And then last year was the third season I've had this tree, and it only produced 7 of some delicious peaches, but the flavor was different. They didn't taste as exotic, had a much stronger peach flavor than the first year where they tasted very exotic. So I am curious how they're going to turn out this season. I did try one already because the wind knocked it off my tree. These peaches aren't even close to being ripe yet. This is considered a white peach, believe it or not, despite the slightly pinkish red skin and yellow tones. The inside of the peach is not totally white, but fairly white in color compared to non-white peaches. And when I tried the peach that fell off the tree from wind, it wasn't bad. It didn't have a lot of flavor yet, but wasn't bitter, wasn't sour. Just still needs to develop the flavors, and the skin needs to soften. The fruit is still very hard. So I'm estimating probably a few more weeks before these peaches are starting to ripen. But overall, I am super happy with this tree this season. Moving just a little ways over from my peach tree, over here we have another Desert King fig tree. This Desert King fig tree was also put through a massive massacre in the fall, and it didn't produce any figs for the spring-summer growing season. But interestingly enough, it is producing the second crop of the season, which for me has never ripened. I'm hoping one of these years we'll have a summer, fall warm enough to ripen these figs on the second crop, but there is no guarantees. That is just what the climate does. That is just what our climate is. It may not be meant for ripening these second crops of figs. And supervisor is checking up on things. Coming a little ways up into the backyard garden, this is my 5 variety plum tree from Costco. In the spring, it had hundreds, if not thousands, of flowers. And if you can tell, I would say it didn't get a single plum. It's very disappointing, totally overgrown right now, definitely needs pruning. But even if it's not having a good year, I am not willing to cut it down, despite the fact that it is frequently riddled with disease. My yard is so hot in the summer that having a little extra shade, even if the tree isn't producing, is something that I'm all for. So this tree is not going anywhere, but it will be pruned. Away from the plum tree, we have a 5 variety cherry tree. The cherries are all done for the season, but we did get some cherries. It wasn't the most abundant year, that's for sure, but there were some, so I can't complain about that. And this tree as well is in need of a heavy pruning. That will come a little later in this season. Here's a view of the upper section where we are headed next. We are now in the upper quadrant of the tiered backyard. And this year is one of my 2 5 variety apple trees. Let's take a closer look at this apple tree. There definitely are apples starting to ripen. You can usually tell when they start to fall off the tree. Although the wind can do that, most of the time it means the apples are pretty close to being ripe if they aren't ripe already. So we have 5 varieties of apples on this tree, and we're gonna do a little harvest while we're up here. I've got a little basket and we're gonna pick some apples. We are starting our apple picking from low to the ground because we literally have apples all the way from the bottom branch up to the top. So we've got a ways to go, but I thought let's start at the bottom and work our way up. We likely will not be picking all of the apples because I don't think all the varieties are ripe yet. We're going to start with the variety right here because this one I know is ripe. I've eaten quite a few of these apples already. I'm not 100 zipper. Hey, no. I'm not 100% certain on the variety. I have the original tags. These apples could be one of many. I have 2 of these combo trees, so 10 varieties total. And if you look at the pictures and you see the apples we're going to harvest, they could be one of several different varieties, so it doesn't really matter what we call them. They're just delicious apples as far as I'm concerned. So last season, this variety was just hit hard by pest pressure, bugs. Hey, Zipper, no, stop, come here. I think the neighbor's dog is outside and he does not approve, so he is voicing his disapproval through his speech. So here is the first apple we harvested. Not bad. There is the tiniest bit right here, very, very small, like a micro size hole. So I do think there could be an insect in here, but honestly, I don't care. It's not going in the compost pile. I grow all of my backyard fruit trees organically. I do not spray them with anything. So when you do organic gardening, you pretty much have to expect some degree of pests are going to get into your produce. You pretty much have to be okay with that, otherwise you might as well not be organic gardening. You might as well use your sprays and all of that if you cannot handle pest pressure. But for me, I'm okay with the odd bug or the odd worm getting into my produce, so we just go with that. Here is the second apple of the season, and I am super thrilled. Not a single blemish on this apple. Absolutely perfect, and this makes me extra happy because last season this particular variety was riddled with pest and apple scab as well. If you're unfamiliar, that is let's call it a medical condition. That is a fungal, I believe it's a fungal condition that affects apples. It could be bacterial. I'm not 100% certain. But it is a condition that does affect apples, and so far we are pristine, other than the micro bug bite in the first apple. Got another pristine apple. I am so thrilled. Beautiful. This is apple number 3, and again, not a single blemish. This makes my heart so happy because I have seen so many pests on these trees over the years. Some years are much better than others, and this year is a fantastic year for apples. Okay, so I broke my lucky streak. This apple on most of the apple looks pretty good, but we do have some blemishes. I believe right here this is actually apple scab, but I'm not too concerned about it. We've had the first 4 apples, and actually it's way more than that because I have been eating. I've eaten quite a few apples already and they were pristine. So the little bit of apple scab and the micro bug hole do not bother me at all. Zipper, hey, come here. Zipper. Apple number 6, completely pristine. And number 7 is also pristine, not a single blemish or marking. We are going to change positions and see if there's any of this variety in the other sections of the tree. We might do a sample on one of the green apples and see how they're doing to see if we should harvest. I'm not actually seeing any more of this variety, interestingly enough, so I may have eaten most of them aside from these ones. That's totally fine. There are plenty of other varieties on here. I think we're gonna do a taste test to see how these other apples are doing. I'm really not certain on if they're ripe yet. If the taste test doesn't go well, they're not going to be picked today. Let's do that. Let's pick one of these. We've got lots of green apples to choose from top to bottom. And I have honed in on which apple we're going to pick. We're going to pick one of these right here. Got a few good ones with red on them. I'm going to try for this one and just see how ripe it actually is. Here it is. Ooh, we've got insect eggs. I wonder if those are spider eggs. I'm not sure, but we're not going to eat them. Here is the green apple that I just picked. It's got a hint of red on it. I have no idea if these ones are ripe yet, but let's do a little taste test. That's what it looks like. It's juicy. Sometimes I have trouble swallowing apples. I'm not really sure why. Something about the texture. It's not anything to do with this particular apple. It's all apples. Literally, it could be any apple. Sometimes it almost gets stuck in my throat, but it's fine. I just need to work a little harder at chewing it smaller. But anyways, I do believe these are ripe. So I don't think we're going to pick them all today because I think there's a whole lot of these ones, but we're going to pick a few more. But first, I'm going to finish my apple. I will join you when I am done. Want apple? Do you want some apple? Do you want to eat my apple? Zipper used to eat apples that would fall from the tree, but he's an old man now. I've only mentioned it a few times on this channel. He's actually 9.5. His birthday is in a few months. And I think he's at the stage where he may be too old to eat apples now. He still has his teeth, but I think they probably just don't work as well as they used to. I have not seen him eat any apples this season. He did last year, but he's really slowing down now, so I think he doesn't eat apples anymore. Back to business. I seem to have a habit of snacking. Whenever I say I'm going to harvest, it ends up being quite the snack festival, but I guess that's what happens. I'm willing to bet most gardeners are like that. Maybe not everybody though. If you don't snack when you garden and you have a ripe produce, let me know in the comments because I'm really curious how many gardeners don't snack when there's fruit and vegetables readily available. I think my parents don't snack, but I wonder if anyone else doesn't. Let me know down below if you're not a garden snacker. Coming into this side of the apple tree, we've got quite the cluster going on here. Oh my goodness. There must be like 10 apples clustered together. Let's see if we can lighten the load a little bit. We've got 2 in 1 here. This tree really put out well this year. Holy smokes. Look at these apples. Gorgeous. This wire basket is giving me a little bit of trouble. The wire keeps puncturing holes in my shirt, so not super thrilled about that. We're going a little higher up in the tree now and see what we can get off of here. Nice apple here. Here's my second 5 variety apple tree. If you're new to this channel, you may not have heard this story. When this tree was in its first growing season, something or someone, very possibly the creature over here, because he was literally a tiny puppy at the time, mauled the tree down to just a little stump. If I can find my picture, I will insert it on the screen. It was only about 4 to 6 inches tall. It had about 1 leaf left, and I almost pulled it out of the ground, assuming it was dead. And my parents convinced me to leave it in the ground, and I did, and it thrived. By spring, it had fresh growth on it, and this is about 8 to 9 years. This is about 9 years later, 9.5 years later. This is what the tree looks like. It is short and stout and usually produces well, but last year it had a terrible hard frost that it was hit with very late in the growing season, and we basically sacrificed all the apples. But I think it has rebounded. Check out all the apples. There are quite a few apples in this tree. They tend to be very small. I probably should have thinned it out, but there are quite a few, so can't complain about that. We're gonna do another taste test because I have no idea if these are ripe. I have not eaten any of these yet in this growing season. We are going to pick one of these red and green ones and give it a taste test. This one right here, a little small, but let's see how it is. So here is the apple we just picked. It is very petite, very cute, and not a single blemish. I am so thrilled about that. Let's give it a taste test. Oh yeah. Honestly, I'm going to eat it, but it's pretty sour. I don't mind sour foods at all. I love vinegar. Basically, it needs to ripen longer. But most of the time, I don't waste food whenever possible, especially fruit. So I am going to eat this apple, but I won't be picking any more from this tree today. The final results of my apple harvest from today, just 1 basket, but that is plenty. There will be many more apples to come in the coming weeks and months. If you enjoyed today's little apple harvest, please hit the like button, and we will see you very soon in another area of the garden. I've got a very special video planned and I cannot wait to share it with you. And the only clue I'm going to give is that it involves the garden at night. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you very soon in the dark. Have a good day, evening, night, wherever you are. Bye for now.